There is one thing that comes to mind that both overlanders and off-roaders have a need for, and that is quality switches. Whether you're running light bars at the mall or onboard air in your off-road rig, you're probably gonna need a few switches to do that. For a while, I've been running just Carling switches in the front of my Jeep, but I had Mictuning, or is it Mictuning, reach out to me, and the last time they reached out, they gave me a set of rock lights that were really good. They reached out this time and offered their new 8-gang RGB switch panel. So now I'm gonna turn you around. We're in the back of the Jeep today because we're in the middle of moving and my garage is trashed. So we're in the hatch of the Jeep. I'm gonna unbox this new switch panel, show you what we're dealing with, then we'll get onto the install, and at the end we'll test it all out and see how it works. All right, I hope you guys can see that just fine. So this is the Mictuning P1's RGB 8-gang switch panel. So opening it up, we got some instructions. Oh, I love when the instructions have pictures in it because I don't like reading. A bunch of options for stickers. You can already see I'll be using that air, some of the light ones, the fan one for my override switch. Here's a few more packets with different things. Just looking at those options, there's all sorts of cool stuff on there. So a ton of stickers. All right, here's the real cool part. The switch panel itself. So pull that out of there. Comes with some wiring. Now the cool thing about these switch panels is it really simplifies your wiring process. Here in a moment I'll show you what I am dealing with already. I'm pretty proud of the setup I came up with, but it was a lot of work to put it in, and something like this would have been just so much easier, so much less wire to run. The buttons feel good. Feels like quality. Okay, moving on. This is the box that I'm gonna mount it under my hood. I'm sure you can put it wherever you want. And it's got your fuse, and I believe they are constant state relays in it. One of the things that's new with this new design is it is fused on the power side instead of the ground side. I believe their old model was on the ground side, and I had seen quite a few complaints about that, and that just shows that they do listen, and they've made some changes to make it better for us. So we got some wires, a breaker, fuse tap, another power wire it looks like, some hardware, and a bunch of brackets for whatever application you have. All right, so now let's go take a look at what I'm dealing with now, and then I'll have to remove all that stuff and we'll play around with where I'm gonna mount this new stuff. All right, so this is the driver's seat view of my Jeep, and I have this switch panel with some Carling switches in it. This panel was from Prime 4x4, great product. The switches, I do like this style of switch a lot. Having it down here has a few drawbacks. For one, when I used to carry my dog with me, he'd always put his paws on there. I've noticed letting other people drive my Jeep, when they put it down into first to go down some of the steeper hills, they bump those. You don't want to do that on the road. And then the other drawback that I don't like is I can only fit 3 here. So I have those 3 switches. I have my fan override switch. I utilized these 2 factory switches for my chase lights in the back. And then I have my bumper light bar, which I might keep that one there because it is handy being able to flip it so quickly. Just, you know, when I'm driving, I can just flick it. And then these are the ones for my rock lights that I just installed, and that's the control one for it. So this will be switching to the panel. These three will be going to the panel. These two will be going to the panel. And my hope there is that I'll be able to mount something here to cover these holes and kind of clean up this mess that I have going on. Speaking of messes, we'll pop the hood now. So when I installed all my lights, it was one of the first things I did on this build. And I thought that I had thought of everything, but I hadn't. So this is the main power wire. It comes from the PDC. It's fused itself and it runs over to the driver's side. On the driver's side, I have a bank of relays that I've stuffed in there. I don't know if you can see that with the sun. So a bank of relays and a fuse block. So this essentially does the same thing, but takes up a lot of space. And when I had installed it, you know, I was new, I made some mistakes. I could have used less wires. Each switch has its own power wire. They could have all had the same power coming into the switch, since all they do is trigger the relays, which has 12 volt power going to each relay and sends the power to my accessories. But you know, there's always things that you don't think of that you want to add later, like those rock lights, for example. That's why this relay over here is sitting on its own. Overall, this was a good setup. I built a little bracket to hold this panel, and it works well. So now I'm going to go ahead and start pulling all that stuff out and cleaning up a little bit. Well, I ran out of time yesterday working on this install, and I got a big mess going on. It's the next day in the morning. I got a few hours to work today, so I'm hoping that I can get everything wrapped up. So under the hood, I found that this bracket that they send you with works perfectly where I had my other bracket. And if you have a 97 or later XJ, there's a screw hole right here in the firewall. I found a big heavy duty screw that fits there perfectly, held on my other bracket for a long time. And then there's also this ridge, I don't know if you can see it, and I was able to just wedge this other side down in there, but it's in there really good, nice and solid. And if I need to, I could always add another screw in there. So that's where the bracket's gonna go. I spent a lot of time yesterday getting everything labeled and pulled out, and what sucks is these are the 3 wires that go to my roof. I'm planning on getting rid of that light bar. It doesn't really get used much. But in order to use these wires with this kit, I'm gonna have to extend them like just a few inches. Well, I guess they're gonna wrap around to this side. So I'm gonna add like a foot and then trim from there. But I hate adding wire. But this runs all the way, oh look, I left my knife out here. This runs all the way underneath my dash and up through the pillar, and then I have a grommet through the roof where the fire department had all their stuff coming out. So I don't want to run new wire. That's just too much work. Still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with some of the wiring, like the 20-inch light bar. You know, do I want to leave it on a switch on the dash like I talked about, or do I want to hook it into my new fancy panel? I think I get to eliminate all of this wiring for my rock lights and have just coming off of the new panel. We'll take a peek inside. I got all my wiring kit out here. This spot right here where I had a switch, I'm gonna buy one of the brackets for my spot and I'll mount that there. Yeah, anyway, lots of wires running around, lots of mess going on. Let's jump back into the hatch. I have everything laid out. So here's all my old stuff. my switches. The wiring harness I built with gobs and gobs of wire. This was the bracket that I had underneath, underneath the hood with all the wires. These fuse panels are always super useful, so I'll keep that around. It's my fan switch. You know, so that big jumble compared to the new stuff. The control box, the switch panel itself, lots and lots of sticker options, hardware, zip ties, these two brackets, these three brackets rather, are for the back of this, so you can either mount it, screw it in and have a flat mount, you know, with the two little tabs hanging out on either side, be able to mount it flat to something, or one of these goes on here, right? So you'd screw, I think it is this one, and then this side would hinge on there. So then this one's threaded, this one's not. Be able to mount that somewhere, screw this to it, and have some adjustability, and I think that's the option I'm going to go with. So let's jump back into the cab with the switch panel and talk about some placement options. So we're sitting in the cab, and you kind of have infinite options with this setup. I even thought about putting it back where I had the other one, and man, that offers such a clean look. I'm still thinking about it, but I better make up my mind real quick. So you can put it there. You could mount it sideways right there. That looks good. You know, but your stickers are going to face the other way, right? I don't know if it would fit there. If I didn't have my control unit for my rock lights, right there might be a cool option. A while back, when I put in my cage, I had built a new bracket. Usually your rear view mirror is mounted on your windshield, so down here. But with the cage, it interfered, so I built a bracket that simply screws in using the tabs for your visors. It's just a flat piece of metal with two holes screwed into it, and then the mirror is screwed into the middle. And it's nice and solid. And I'm thinking, you know, I carry a lot in the back of my Jeep. With this tire either inside or on the tire carrier, the rear window's pretty much useless anyway, so I don't use this mirror very often. So I kind of want to grab one of these little bubble mirrors, and I'll just stick that on my cage right there so I can see my daughter in the back. And I'm thinking I'll use that flat piece, or those angled ones, right? And I'll try to mount that. Oh, bumped my head. And I'll mount that up here. All right, so here is my bracket that goes above, well, where my visors go. And I just simply drilled a couple new holes and screwed that down in there. Now this side of the bracket is the one that has the threaded pieces on it. This is going to attach to the threaded pieces using these two screws, which are the shorter of the ones, and thread in there nicely. This piece of the bracket is going to go to the switch panel itself using 4 of these really small screws. So you'll have to be careful and just make sure you're, you know, putting the right ones in the right holes. It's not going to take much to tighten those down. So just put them in there and just go a little snug. Definitely don't want to strip out those holes. So now these two pieces are going to go together like that. Yeah, so instead of using these screws, which do thread in, I think I'm supposed to be using these Allen heads. So I'm going to go ahead and use those instead. Too much glare off the head. There it is. Mounted on that bracket. Nice and firm. Nice and out of the way. Should be plenty of cable to run it through the headliner, down this pillar, and through the firewall there. Well, I ended up having to run to the store and grab some hardware because while mounting this, I was using the factory hardware. This side I was having so much trouble. I pulled it out and realized, oh, it's gone now. There's no threads on that nut. So I ran down to Napa and grabbed a couple just nut and bolt that I'll put in there instead. Then that will be mounted. Having a heck of a time deciding how I want to lay all this stuff out. So my fan already had a relay. And it requires a constant 12 volt. So I'm just going to jump off of this power. I bought a new large gauge power wire to run from the driver's side over to here to power this. And so I'll use this as a junction box. And I'll run a fuse for this constant power. And I might need to run one back for my cargo lights if I can't find a wire on the inside to act as the power source for that. So that's where I'm at right now. So for the next step, I need to put in this breaker, and I simply zip tied it to the wire loom there. Should be plenty stout. And then I'm going to use one of the provided wires. You can see there I was playing around with where to put it, and it arced over and was making quite a few sparks, and I burnt my finger. So I'm going to run this wire from the PDC post to the breaker, and then I bought a bunch of similar size gauge wire to run from the breaker, follow the factory loom over to the other side. And when I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and take out my old wire. So yeah, I'm gonna do that and then I'll show you what I did. We're tied into the PDC post. Got the breaker here. Cover comes off. So if it trips, you just close it, reset it. Has a nice little cover. I'm gonna wait until I can get some wire loom because I realize I have a few wires running, well, two now, I guess. So either I'm gonna zip tie those real nice or just get a nice chunk of wire loom. But it runs across the engine bay. And over to here, I'm gonna leave a little excess wire so that if I need to change things up or move this at some point, I have a little bit of wiggle room. So I'll cut this wire off about there and add a lug. This box is mounted nice and tight. This is the positive side. The cover tells you that. And then I'm going to run the negative wire from there, probably to here where I had my old negative. Or maybe over to here, that'd be a good spot. So I still have plenty to do, but I was able to test it out real quick. So let me show you what's going on. I went ahead and plugged this in, and I mean, yeah, look, I have so much cleanup to do, right? But man, this thing is really awesome. So here is the wire that runs to my 20-inch bar up there. I unscrewed that, I slid it in. It's nice, good connection. I have my power wire. This is going to be the constant for my fan, and then my fan will plug into one of these. And here's my ground, loops around. I have it coming over to here. Let's put the cover on, see what it looks like, make sure I have enough clearance there. And I do, everything fits nice and great. So right now I have it on constant power setting, and that's one of the other things I have to do is hook up the tap so that it's for key on accessory. Anyway, so the light bar is off. Power on, chose blue. Press the button, nice little red indicator light. On. You can dim it, choose different colors, off. Man, I am so excited. Another neat feature of this control panel, of this switch system, is they give you the option to either have it connected to your battery, so direct power from the battery, or to accessory key on. And all you have to do is simply switch this switch right here. This is on the panel underneath the hood. So right now it would be an accessory key on. That would be switched over to full-time power, always connected to the battery. And in order to do this, they give you this little fuse jumper. And it has a mini blade fuse in it. And ordinarily you would go to your fuse box, you would find a mini fuse, you would pull the fuse out, plug this in, and then plug the original fuse into the bottom of this. And that would allow this circuit to run off that fuse, but it has its own fuse, if that makes sense. So there's two fuses that go in this holder. So whatever you're jumping off of would remain the same, but then you would also have a 2 amp fuse for running to here. And this wire is provided, has a little white plug on it that plugs in here, just like this one did. This is the one that runs to the switch panel itself. This one, it's a nice long wire they give you. And this is for wiring. So you hook this in to the mini blade one. You know, you might have to run extra wire. And essentially you just need it to have a key on circuit. So for my situation, my scenario, my mini fuses are over there in the kick panel. And instead of trying to crane my neck and find one that is just key on with my test light, I have this circuit right here that goes to the cigarette lighter on my factory panel here. And when this was a police Jeep or fire chief Jeep, they had a bunch of stuff running off it. So there's already a tap there. So a flat blade plugs into that. And this is a key on circuit. So when the key is on, there's power to this wire. When the key is off, there is not power to this wire. So I'm gonna run a wire from here under the dash. I have an inline fuse holder here that I will put on, and I will run that to this wire, and that's where I'll get my key on source from. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. The dimensions of the control center, the box itself is 6 3/8 by about 5 inches and 1.5 inches tall. The bracket, the overall length of the bracket is right around 8 inches. And then the switch panel is about 2 3/4 by 4 7/8, right around there. All right, so now that it's dark, I wanted to show you guys what this looks like lit up. And then we'll go through some of the functions on it and I'll show you what's going on. So to start, well, I suppose you probably can't see that very well, but I put some of the stickers on. So on the left side, you have a power button. I have it set to red. So I got bumper, side, backup. Strobe is going to be my chase lights. The fan, I got an empty one, the rock lights, and an empty one. So down at the bottom is a button that says RGB, and you can change colors. I like the blue. The red's a little easier on the eyes. Then you have the middle button is a dimmer. Fan comes on. Got my backup lights. Side lights. Well, side light. I got one that's burned out on both sides. Putting the stickers on was a little difficult just because I'm not good at that kind of stuff. And they sit, when they sit on there, the best I can get it, there's gonna be a little bit of ring around the sides. No big deal. All right, so say you want a button to be momentary. You're gonna press the center button and hold it until it flashes. And then you're gonna choose which one you want. So say backup, then press power. Okay, now turn it back on. And now when I press the backup button, it only stays on while I'm pressing it. You can see the indicator light. So I'm pressing it. So that's momentary. And then if you press that center button again and hold it until it starts flashing, and then press it again until it starts flashing blue, and choose which one you want. Again, we'll do backup, off, on, and that is going to set it to strobe. So that setting would be kind of cool for, you know, some emergency lights or flashers. And then if you want to go back to normal, just got to press that button again. Off, on, and that should do the trick. Oh, green looks pretty good too. I'll run through some of the colors for you. And then in addition to that, right now I have it set to battery on. So the key is off. It works just fine. If I go out to the engine bay and pop the cover and flip that switch that I showed you guys earlier, see the light dims as it loses the power in the system. So now it's set to accessory, and nothing happens when I press that power button. Turn the key on, and there you got your light. And the other thing I wanted to show you guys, say I want my fan and my side lights on, and I shut this off. When I turn it back on, it retains its memory. Fan, side lights, rock lights, whatever, shut it off, back on, all that stuff's still on. Those are the Mictuning rock lights that I installed in a previous video. All right, so as far as the video is concerned, we are done with this install. I still need to go through and clean up all the wiring. I have wires just laying around, so I'm gonna go through and zip tie everything up. But this is installed and they're nice and sturdy. Got the panel installed. Show you some daytime function of it. Bumper, fan, empties. Really like where I mounted it. Looks good up there. I still have to clean up all my other wiring and just finish zip tying everything up. So overall, the install was pretty easy, not too difficult. The hardest part was actually just making my pre-existing wiring work because I had to add some length to it to get it to fit in there. So if I were to start a new build, this would be one of the first things I bought when I got into buying accessories. So if I'm putting lights and onboard air, fan override, all that kind of stuff, this is the ticket for that, because it's going to make adding stuff in the future a lot easier. Instead of having to, you know, pre-think everything out, which you should still try to do, but this allows for easily adding stuff in the future. So for example, take that cover off. So I have a couple open spaces. If I want to add something, I simply have to run the power and ground wire to this box, or even just the power wire if I'm grounding off the body. And you simply unscrew that and pop it in the tab down there and clamp it down and you're done. Put it in accessory mode, full-time power mode. The cover pops on nice and easy. So tell me what you guys think. Is this a good buy? I think it is. I think they're offering it at a reasonable cost. I did get it for free. So a huge shout out to Mictuning or Mictuning for that. And if you have any questions, drop a comment and I'll try to get to that. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.